The stars stretched out in front of Captain Elias Carter as he sat at the helm of the U.S. Valor, the flagship of the Earth exploration fleet. It was a quiet day in the far reaches of the galaxy, where the hum of the ship's engines was the only sound breaking the silence of space. The crew had just finished a routine scan of a nearby system when an unexpected transmission came through. At first, it was just static, the kind of noise one might expect from a malfunctioning signal. But then, through the static, a voice. "Help, please, dying. We need resources." Captain Carter's brow furrowed as he leaned forward. He hadn't expected to find anything out here. Earth had only recently expanded its reach beyond the solar system, and most of the galaxy still remained a mystery. There had been no signs of intelligent life, at least not any that were actively communicating. This message, though weak and distorted, seemed like a cry for help. "Are we sure this isn't some kind of mistake?" Lieutenant Sarah Doon asked, standing at the comm station. Her eyes were wide as she watched the data streams flicker on her screen. "It's not coming from anywhere near known space." "I don't know, Lieutenant," Carter replied, his voice calm but his mind already racing. "But we can't ignore it. Pull up the coordinates." The signal came from a star system several hundred light-years away, a place no human had ever explored. Carter felt a chill run down his spine. A distress signal that far from any known route was rare. Either it was a trap, or someone was in serious trouble. He turned to his first officer, Commander Jacob Reyes, who was standing nearby, already tapping commands into his console. "Prepare the ship. Set a course for the source of that signal." Reyes looked up from his station, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Are you sure about this, Captain? It could be dangerous. We don't know what we're walking into." Carter nodded. "I know. But if it's real, we can't just leave them out there. Earth isn't like the other powers in this galaxy. We don't turn our backs on those in need." The crew moved quickly, preparing for the journey. As the U.S. Valor adjusted its course, the stars outside the viewport began to shift. The engines hummed to life, and the ship cut through the void toward the unknown. It took days to reach the coordinates. The journey was long, and the crew passed the time with quiet conversations and routine checks. Carter spent most of his time in the command center, reviewing data on his tablet, studying the little they knew about the system. He found nothing of note, just a few lifeless planets and the remnants of asteroids. There was no indication of a thriving civilization, let alone a race in need of rescue. As the Valor neared the location, the distress signal grew clearer, though still faint. The captain ordered the ship to slow, cautiously moving into the system. It wasn't long before they discovered something they hadn't expected: a fleet of ships drifting aimlessly in space. "Captain, take a look at this," Reyes said from the sensor station. He zoomed in on a large vessel on the screen. The ship was in poor shape, its outer hull damaged, and it seemed to be leaking fuel into space. Carter's heart sank. The signal had led them here, but it was worse than he could have imagined. He studied the ships closely, his mind racing. They weren't human. The design was completely unfamiliar, with smooth, curved edges and unusual markings on their surface. They appeared to be abandoned. "Prepare to board," Carter ordered. "We need to investigate. Get a team ready." The crew boarded the alien ship cautiously. The air was stale, and the faint sound of clanking metal echoed through the empty corridors. It was clear that whatever had happened to these ships had left their inhabitants in a dire situation. As they made their way deeper into the ship, they found signs of life. Small groups of alien beings, thin, pale-skinned creatures with large, glowing eyes, were huddled in the corners of the ship. They were weak, malnourished, and appeared to be in shock. But their eyes lit up with a flicker of hope when they saw the humans. One of the creatures approached slowly, its eyes filled with desperation. The translator Chip Carter had ordered to be implanted in the crew's gear picked up the alien's words, though they were broken and garbled. "Help, please," the alien whispered, its voice weak. "Our people Gone. Betrayed. Who are you? Carter asked, stepping forward. What happened to you? The alien's face twisted in sorrow. We are Xipherians. The Tyrak. They left us. Carter exchanged a glance with his crew. The name Tyrak was unfamiliar, but it didn't matter. These beings, the Xipherians, were in need of help, and they had come all this way, knowing the risks, because they knew they had no other choice. The Tyrak had abandoned them, and the Xipherians had nowhere else to turn. Don't worry, Carter said, his voice soft but firm. You're not alone anymore. We'll help you. The Xipherians gazed at him in wonder, as if they couldn't quite believe it. But Carter meant what he said. Humanity would not leave them to die. The U.S. Valor was now fully docked inside the alien ship, which was much larger than Carter had initially thought. The lights flickered weakly, and the halls were narrow, filled with strange symbols and unfamiliar technology. The air felt thick, as if the ship hadn't been properly ventilated in a long time. Yet, amidst the damaged equipment and forgotten spaces, the Xipherians were here, trying to survive. Captain Carter led the way through the dark corridors, his boots clicking softly against the metal floor. The crew moved carefully, their faces serious but filled with curiosity. They passed a few more of the Xipherians, who watched them from the shadows. These beings, though clearly suffering, had an air of dignity about them, as if they once commanded respect. They stopped in a large chamber that seemed to serve as the heart of the ship. The room was dimly lit, and there were more Xipherians here, sitting in small groups. Some were lying down, too weak to move. Others spoke in hushed tones, their voices barely above a whisper. They looked up when the humans entered, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. At the center of the room stood their leader, Varun, a tall and slender Xipherian with sharp features and glowing blue eyes. Despite the bruises and dirt on his skin, there was an undeniable presence about him. He held himself straight, his posture proud even though his people were in ruins. Captain Carter, Varun said, his voice surprisingly calm. I am Varun, leader of the Xipherians. You have come in our time of need. We are eternally grateful. Carter stepped forward, nodding respectfully. It's the least we could do, but I need to know more. What happened to your people? Why are you here, stranded and alone? Varun's eyes darkened as he spoke, his voice tinged with sorrow. The Tyrak Dominion, once our allies, turned on us. They were the ones who helped us rise to power. We were their partners in war, but we were always the weaker race, expendable. When we no longer served their interests, they betrayed us. The room fell silent as the Xipherians exchanged glances, their faces filled with pain. Carter could feel the weight of their history, their broken trust. They left us to die, Varun continued. When the Tyrak decided we were no longer useful, they cut off all trade, stopped sending the supplies we needed. Soon, our ships ran out of fuel, our food was gone, and our people began to starve. We've been drifting for months, hoping for rescue. But the Tyrak are too strong, and we have nothing left. Carter could feel the gravity of the situation settling on his shoulders. The Xipherians were more than just refugees. They were survivors of a betrayal that had cost them everything. His heart ached for them, but he knew what had to be done. Humanity had always been quick to fight for the underdog, to protect those who could not protect themselves. And now they had found themselves in a fight for a people who had lost everything. We will help you, Carter said firmly, his voice full of conviction. We'll provide food, medicine, anything you need, and we'll get you out of here. Varun's eyes widened, disbelief flashing across his face. You would do that for us? After all we've lost, after everything we've suffered? Of course, Carter replied. You don't deserve to be abandoned. No one should have to suffer like this. The Xipherians gathered around, murmuring to one another in their language, their voices growing louder with a sense of hope. They had heard the words of the humans, but could they truly believe it? Could they trust that these strangers, these humans, would help them after their own kind had turned their backs? Varun looked at Carter, his gaze steady. "We have lost so much, Captain. My people are broken. We are few. The Tyrak were right to leave us. We are weak." Carter shook his head, stepping closer. "Your people are not weak. You've survived against impossible odds. That takes strength. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The Zypherian leader seemed to ponder this for a moment, his eyes softening. He had seen so much pain, so much loss, that it was hard to believe in something as simple as hope. But there was something about Carter's words, the kindness in his eyes, that made him wonder if perhaps there was a chance for them after all. "You speak of hope," Varun said quietly. "But what if there is no hope for us? What if we are too far gone?" "We're going to rebuild," Carter said, his voice filled with determination. "Together, we'll rebuild. It's not too late. You're not alone anymore." Captain Carter stood at the command center of the U.S. Valor, staring at the screen that displayed the Zypherian ship. The crew had been working nonstop since they arrived, analyzing the damaged ship and trying to figure out a way to help. The situation was more complicated than they had anticipated. The Zypherians were starving. Their ship was nearly out of fuel, and the nearest habitable planet was light years away. Time was running out. "We need to act quickly," Carter said, his voice serious. "The Zypherians don't have much time left. We can't waste any more of it." Lieutenant Doom, who was stationed at the tactical console, looked up at him. "Captain, we've done a full analysis of their ship. The structural damage is extensive, and their life support systems are failing. But we can stabilize them. The issue is the fuel. They're running on fumes." Carter nodded. The Valor had the resources to help, but the task was far from simple. They needed to find a solution that would get the Zypherians to safety, while also ensuring they didn't drain all of Earth's resources in the process. "We have the technology to repair their ship's life support," Doom continued, "but we'll need to take their fuel cells back to the Valor for recharging. The closest station is 3 days away. If we leave now, we can get their fuel and bring it back before their supplies run out." Carter's eyes narrowed as he considered the plan. 3 days was a long time to wait, especially when the Zypherians were already so weak. But it was the best option they had. "Get to work," Carter ordered. "Prepare a team to retrieve the fuel cells and get them back here. I want everything ready to go. We don't have much time." While the crew worked to prepare the ship and gather the necessary supplies, Commander Reyes and a few other officers accompanied Captain Carter to the Zypherian ship to speak with Varun. The alien leader had been waiting for them in the same chamber where they had met before. He looked up as Carter entered, his eyes filled with a mixture of uncertainty and hope. "Captain Carter," Varun greeted, his voice still weak but steady. "Have you made a decision? Is there hope for us?" "We're not giving up on you," Carter said, his voice firm. "But we need your help. We're going to take the fuel cells from your ship and recharge them at a nearby station. We'll need your cooperation to get the cells safely back here." Varun hesitated, his expression darkening. "If you take our fuel, we will be even more vulnerable. The Tyrak could return at any time. We would be completely exposed." "We'll protect you," Carter reassured him. "But this is our best chance. If we don't get the fuel, your ship won't last long enough for us to help you." Varun's shoulders slumped, and for a moment, he looked defeated. But then he lifted his head, his glowing eyes meeting Carter's. "We will help you. If this is the only way, then we will trust you." Carter nodded, his respect for the Zypherian leader growing. Despite everything his people had been through, Varun was willing to trust them. That wasn't something Carter took lightly. "We'll make it work," Carter promised. Back aboard the U.S. Valor, the crew quickly mobilized. A small team was sent to the Zypherian ship to extract the fuel cells, while the rest of the crew prepared to defend the ship in case the Tyrak appeared. The Zypherians, still weak from months of starvation and isolation, worked alongside the humans, guiding them to the necessary areas in their damaged ship. The fuel cells were large and cumbersome, but they were vital to the Xipherians' survival. Without them, the Xipherian ship would be nothing more than a drifting hulk in space. Carter watched as the crew worked quickly but carefully, knowing that every second counted. The operation was tense. As the last fuel cell was loaded onto the Valor, Carter received an urgent report from Lieutenant Dune. "Captain, I've detected movement in the area," she said, her voice tight with concern. "It's faint, but there are ships nearby. We might have company." Carter's heart skipped a beat. How many? Unknown, but they're moving fast. "Get ready for anything," Carter ordered, his eyes scanning the star system outside the viewport. "I want all defensive systems online. If the Tyrak are here, we'll be ready." As the Valor prepared to leave the Xipherian ship, the crew anxiously watched the sensors. The thought of the Tyrak attacking now, when they were so close to saving the Xipherians, made the situation even more dangerous. The crew had been through battles before, but this felt different. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the lives of an entire species. As the Valor began its journey toward the fuel station, the crew held their breath, praying the Tyrak wouldn't arrive in time to stop them. Carter knew they were in a race against the clock, but there was one thing he was certain of: humanity wouldn't leave the Xipherians behind. The U.S. Valor cruised through space at full speed, the ship's engines humming softly as they approached the fuel station. The crew moved quickly, working efficiently, but there was an undercurrent of tension in the air. The countdown was on. They needed to recharge the Xipherian ship's fuel cells and get back to the Xipherians before the Tyrak arrived. Every minute felt like an eternity. Captain Carter stood in front of the main console, his eyes fixed on the screen. The distant fuel station was now within range, a small station in the vast emptiness of space. It wasn't much, but it was their only option. "Captain, we'll be arriving at the station in 5 minutes, Lieutenant Dune reported. "All systems are functioning at full capacity. But there's something strange." Carter turned to her. "What do you mean, strange?" "There's a blip on the radar," she replied. "It's not Tyrak ships, but it's definitely another ship, moving fast. I can't tell who it is yet, but it's heading in our direction." Carter's heart raced. "Get a closer look. If it's Tyrak, we need to prepare." Dune nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. The image of the approaching ship flickered on the screen. It was small, but fast, and it was coming right toward them. "Sir, I don't recognize the ship's signature," Dune said, her voice uncertain. "It could be anyone." "We don't have time to guess," Carter said, his voice sharp. "All hands, prepare for battle. Activate shields and weapon systems. We may have to defend ourselves." As the crew scrambled to prepare for a potential fight, Carter felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. If the Tyrak were behind this mysterious ship, the Xipherians' fate would be sealed. They wouldn't have enough time to escape, and the fuel cells would be lost. But if it was just another group trying to reach the fuel station, they might have a chance to finish the mission without any problems. On the bridge, the tension was palpable. The crew worked in complete silence as the unknown ship drew closer. Captain Carter stood at the front, his eyes fixed on the screen. Every second felt like an eternity, and he could feel the sweat forming on his forehead. Finally, the mysterious ship came into full view. It was sleek, with sharp, angular edges that made it look like it was built for speed. It was unlike anything Carter had seen before. As the ship drew closer, a voice crackled over the communication system. "This is the Exalter," a calm voice said. "We're here to assist. Stand down." Carter raised an eyebrow. "Assist? Who are you?" "We are from the Alliance of the Forgotten," the voice continued. "We've been watching the Tyrak. We know what they've done to the Xipherians. We're here to help you." Carter's mind raced. The Alliance of the Forgotten. He had never heard of them before, but the mention of the Tyrak was enough to get his attention. "We don't need any more trouble," Carter replied cautiously. "Why are you here?" "We know the Tyrak are coming," the voice said. "They've been searching for the Zephyrians for weeks. If we don't act quickly, they'll wipe them out. We have the means to help you get the Zephyrians to safety, but you must trust us." Carter exchanged glances with Lieutenant Dune. This was a new development, one that they hadn't expected. Could they trust these mysterious strangers, or were they walking right into a trap? "Captain, they could be our only chance," Dune said quietly. "The Tyrak are ruthless. If they're really here to help, we don't have much of a choice." Carter nodded slowly, weighing the options. "Fine," he said. "We'll accept your help, but any sign of betrayal, and we'll be ready to defend ourselves." There was a moment of silence before the voice responded. "Understood, Captain. We'll guide you to safety." With a sense of cautious relief, Carter gave the order to lower the shields and allow the Excelsior ship to approach. It docked smoothly alongside the U.S. Valor, and a team of humanoid figures emerged from the ship. They were dressed in dark, sleek armor, and their faces were hidden behind helmets. But there was something about their posture, their silent confidence, that made Carter trust them. The leader of the group stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal a tall, broad-shouldered man with piercing green eyes and short black hair. His features were sharp, almost alien, but there was no mistaking the sincerity in his gaze. "I'm Captain Ryan of the Alliance of the Forgotten," the man said. "We've been monitoring the Tyrak for some time. We know what they've done to the Zephyrians, and we can offer you protection." Carter shook his hand, still unsure but willing to take the risk. "I'm Captain Carter of the U.S. Valor. What exactly do you know about the Tyrak, and how can you help?" Captain Ryan's face darkened. "We've been fighting the Tyrak for years. We have the resources to outsmart them. If you allow us to assist, we'll ensure the Zephyrians are safe from any further attacks." Carter nodded, feeling a sense of hope begin to stir in his chest. "All right, let's get to work." As the two ships worked together, the crew prepared for the next stage of the mission. The Tyrak were still a threat, but now, with the Alliance of the Forgotten by their side, they had a fighting chance. The Zephyrians' survival depended on their ability to work together, and Carter was determined to see this mission through, no matter the cost. The U.S. Valor and the Excelsior had been working together for hours, preparing to move the Zephyrians to safety. The crew of both ships had put their differences aside, focusing solely on the mission at hand. It wasn't easy. The tension between the two groups was still thick, but Captain Carter was hopeful. The Alliance of the Forgotten seemed trustworthy, and the Zephyrians needed their help more than ever. As the two ships neared the coordinates where the Zephyrians were being held, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong. He knew the Tyrak were close. He could feel it. The Tyrak had been chasing them for days, and now they were getting closer with every passing moment. The communication system buzzed. "Captain Carter," came the calm voice of Captain Ryan. "We've detected Tyrak ships in the vicinity. They've located the Zephyrians." Carter's heart raced. He had feared this moment would come. The Tyrak were notorious for their relentless pursuit, and they had never been easy to defeat. Now they were dangerously close to the Zephyrians' hiding spot. "Do they know we're here?" Carter asked, his voice tight. "They're aware," Captain Ryan replied. "But they don't know the full extent of our capabilities. We have one chance to strike first. Then we have no time to waste," Carter said. "Prepare for battle. I'll join you on the bridge." Minutes later, Carter stood on the bridge of the Excelsior ship, looking out at the approaching Tyrak fleet. The ship's sleek design was unlike anything Carter had ever seen before. It was built for speed and stealth, a perfect tool for a surprise attack. Captain Ryan stood beside him, his face serious. "The Alliance of the Forgotten has been fighting the Tyrak for generations," he explained. "We've learned their tactics, their weaknesses. If we time this attack right, we can take them out before they even know what hit them." Carter nodded, impressed by Ryan's confidence. "What's the plan?" "We have two objectives," Ryan said. First, we disable the Tyrak ship's engines to prevent them from escaping. Second, we need to create a diversion so the U.S. Valor can move the Zephyrians to a safe location. We'll be your eyes and ears in the field." Carter felt a weight settle in his chest. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. If they failed, the Zephyrians would be lost, and the Tyrak would wipe them all out. He had to trust Ryan and the Alliance. There was no other choice. "Understood," Carter said. "Let's do this." The battle started faster than Carter expected. The Excelsior ship surged forward, its engines roaring as it closed the distance between them and the Tyrak fleet. The Tyrak ships, massive and menacing, turned toward the incoming ships, but they were unprepared for the Alliance's strike. Ryan's ship fired first, a blast of energy that hit the lead Tyrak ship, causing sparks and smoke to erupt from its side. The Tyrak ship attempted to retaliate, but the Excelsior was already gone, darting out of range. Carter watched in awe as the Alliance of the Forgotten moved with precision. They had been through this before. The Excelsior ship dodged and weaved through the Tyrak fleet, striking key points on each ship. The Tyrak didn't stand a chance against such skill and speed. Meanwhile, on the U.S. Valor, the crew was working tirelessly to move the Zephyrians. They had only a few minutes to get them to safety, and the Tyrak were closing in fast. Carter could hear the urgency in the voices of his officers as they gave orders and coordinates to the Zephyrians, guiding them to the emergency escape pods. "We're almost there, Captain," Lieutenant Doon shouted, her voice trained with effort. "Keep pushing," Carter urged. "We need to get them out before it's too late." As the battle raged on outside, Carter couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The Alliance of the Forgotten had proven themselves in battle. They were everything Ryan had promised and more. With each strike, the Tyrak fleet grew weaker. The Excelsior was a ghost, appearing and disappearing with deadly precision, leaving the Tyrak commanders scrambling to catch up. Carter kept his eyes on the escape pods. One by one, the Zephyrians were being sent to safety, their lives depending on the success of this mission. Then, just as the last Zephyrian pod was launched, a loud explosion shook the U.S. Valor. Carter's heart stopped as the ship rocked again. He looked up to see the status board flashing red. "Report," he shouted. "We've been hit," Lieutenant Doon replied. "Shields are down to 30%. We're taking on heavy damage from the Tyrak's counterattack." Carter gritted his teeth. "Get us out of here. We need to regroup." The Tyrak were getting desperate. The U.S. Valor had successfully completed its mission, but now it was a race against time. With the Excelsior fighting to hold off the Tyrak ships, Carter had to make a split-second decision. "We're retreating," Carter said firmly. "Set a course back to the rendezvous point. We're not losing anyone today." As the ship sped away from the battle, Carter allowed himself a moment of relief. The Zephyrians were safe, for now. But as the U.S. Valor jumped to warp speed, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was far from over. The Tyrak wouldn't give up so easily, and there were still so many unanswered questions about the Alliance of the Forgotten. But one thing was certain: humanity had just made powerful new allies. After the battle, the U.S. Valor limped through space, its hull scarred from the Tyrak's attacks. Despite the damage, the crew was in good spirits. The mission had been a success. The Zephyrians were safe. But as Captain Carter paced the bridge, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Beside him, Lieutenant Doon worked tirelessly at her station, reviewing the damage reports. "Captain, we've lost some vital systems. The shields are barely functional. We need repairs, but we're not going to make it to the rendezvous point without more trouble." Carter frowned. The Tyrak were unpredictable, and with the Excelsior ship out of communication, he had no idea what had happened to Ryan's crew. If they had been destroyed or captured, it would be a disaster. He turned to Doon, his voice steady. "Set a course for the nearest repair station. We'll figure it out from there." Doon nodded, but her face betrayed the same worry Carter felt. Hours passed, and the ship drifted through the dark void of space, heading toward a distant repair station on the edge of the galaxy. The crew was exhausted, but their spirits were high. The Zephyrians were still recovering, but they were safe for now, tucked away in the lower levels of the ship. Carter had arranged a meeting with the Zephyrian leaders to discuss the next steps. They needed to know their plans for the future, and Carter needed to know what the Alliance of the Forgotten was truly after. He couldn't help but feel that the Alliance's true motives hadn't been fully revealed. In the meeting room, Carter stood across from the Zephyrian leaders. They were a calm group, their faces serene as they listened to Carter's questions. The Zephyrians were grateful for the help they had received, but their eyes held secrets that they weren't eager to share. Carter spoke first. "We've helped you escape the Tyrak, but I need to know what you plan to do next. The Tyrak won't give up. We need to have a plan, and we need to know if you're going to be an ally in this fight." The Zephyrian leader, a tall, regal figure named Zorv, met Carter's gaze. His eyes were ancient, filled with wisdom and sorrow. "Captain Carter, you have done much for us, but there is more at play here than you realize. The Tyrak are only one part of a much larger problem." Carter's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Zorv's voice was low. "The Alliance of the Forgotten. They have their own agenda. They are not here to simply help us. They seek something far more powerful than you can imagine." Carter's mind raced. Could Ryan and the Alliance have been hiding something? Were they using the Zephyrians for their own purposes? He had trusted Ryan, but the revelation hit hard. The Zephyrians had no reason to lie. They were too desperate to escape the Tyrak's grasp. "What are they after?" Carter asked, his voice filled with suspicion. Zorv hesitated. The Alliance of the Forgotten was once part of a larger empire, one that ruled over many systems. When the empire fell, they were exiled, forgotten by most of the galaxy. But they found something ancient and powerful. They are seeking to reclaim what was lost, and they will stop at nothing to do so. Carter's heart skipped a beat. What could be so powerful that it would drive the Alliance to manipulate the Zephyrians and fight a war with the Tyrak? He had no answers, only more questions. As Carter left the meeting room, his mind was spinning. The Alliance of the Forgotten had offered their help, but now Carter wasn't sure if they were allies or just another group with a hidden agenda. He had to find out more. The Zephyrians had given him the first hint, but now he needed to investigate the Alliance on his own. As he made his way to the bridge, Doom approached him. "Captain, we've received a transmission from the Telther. It's from Captain Ryan." Carter's heart leaped. He had been waiting for this moment. He quickly activated the comms, and Ryan's face appeared on the screen. His expression was tense, and there was a deep worry in his eyes. "Captain Carter," Ryan said, his voice low. "We need to talk. It's about the Alliance of the Forgotten." Carter's mind raced. He could feel the weight of Ryan's words already. "Go ahead, Captain. I'm listening." Ryan glanced around, ensuring no one was listening in. "The Alliance isn't what you think it is. We've been tracking something for years, and now it's close. We're heading to a location where we believe the artifact is hidden. But it's dangerous, and if the Tyrak get there first, it's all over. We need your help to get to it first." Carter's pulse quickened. "What artifact?" Ryan's voice was grim. "Something that can change the balance of power in the entire galaxy." Carter knew he had no choice. The Zephyrians were already in the fight, and now he was being pulled deeper into a mystery that spanned galaxies. With the Tyrak chasing them, and the Alliance of the Forgotten on their side, the stakes were higher than ever before. The future of the galaxy was on the line. He looked out the window of the bridge, his thoughts racing. The answers were out there, but the crew of the U.S. Valor moved through space with a new sense of urgency. They had learned that the Alliance of the Forgotten was searching for an artifact that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. It was clear that the stakes had never been higher. Carter could no longer trust just anyone. He had to find out what was really going on before it was too late. Captain Carter paced back and forth on the bridge, his mind filled with uncertainty. The Tyrak were still a constant threat, and now the Alliance seemed to have their own dangerous agenda. The Zephyrians, though grateful, had their own secrets. Everyone was playing their part in a game that was much bigger than they could all see. Dune approached, her face serious. "Captain, we've detected a signal. It's coming from the location Ryan mentioned." Carter stopped pacing, his eyes locking onto hers. "Is it the Alliance?" "We can't be sure, but it's definitely a Excelsior ship. We think Ryan's crew is there, waiting for us." Carter's heart raced. This was it, the moment where everything would come together, or fall apart. They were heading into a situation where nothing was clear, and every decision could change the future of the galaxy. Hours later, the U.S. Valor arrived at the coordinates, hovering above a hidden planet in a remote sector of space. It was a place that no one had visited in centuries, a planet shrouded in mystery. Carter's crew was ready for anything, but even they didn't know what awaited them. The surface of the planet was dark, with jagged mountains and dense forests stretching as far as the eye could see. It looked like a place that held ancient secrets, perhaps the very ones that the Alliance and Tyrak were both searching for. Carter stood in front of the ship's war room table, looking at the holographic map that showed their location. Ryan's signal was getting stronger. It wasn't just a beacon, it was a warning. There was something here, something powerful. They had to move carefully. "Prepare an away team," Carter ordered. "We'll need to stay alert. Dune, you're with me. Let's make sure we get the answers we need, and fast." The shuttle doors opened, and Carter, Dune, and a small team of soldiers stepped onto the rocky surface of the unknown world. The air was thin, but breathable. They moved quickly, the dense trees around them creating an eerie silence. They couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Ryan's ship was parked just ahead. It looked damaged, but there were signs of recent activity. Carter's team approached cautiously, their weapons at the ready. Ryan's voice came over the comms. "Captain, we've been waiting for you. But be careful. There's something else here, something dangerous." Carter responded, his voice steady. "We'll be careful, Captain. But we need to know what's really going on. What is the Alliance after?" Ryan emerged from the ship, his face weary but determined. "The artifact is here, hidden deep beneath the surface. It's a relic from an ancient race, one that had control over incredible technology. If the Alliance finds it, they could reshape the galaxy to their will. They want control, Carter. And they'll stop at nothing to get it." Carter's stomach tightened. "And the Tyrak? They're just pawns," Ryan said with a grim expression. "The Alliance has been using them to distract us while they make their move. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for the future of everyone." The group made their way to an ancient temple hidden beneath the ground. The entrance was covered by overgrown vines and rocks, but there was a faint glow coming from within. The air was thick with the smell of old stone and dust. As they descended into the darkness, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But they had come too far to turn back now. Inside the temple, the walls were covered in strange symbols, ones that no one on the ship could translate. But there was no time to study them. The artifact was close. As they reached the chamber, they saw it, a glowing crystal resting on a pedestal in the center of the room. The air seemed to hum with power, but before they could approach it, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. From the shadows, the Alliance of the Forgotten appeared, led by Zorv, the Zephyrian leader. "You shouldn't have come here," Zorv said, his voice cold and filled with authority. "The artifact belongs to us." Carter's heart pounded in his chest. He had known something wasn't right. But this was beyond anything he had imagined. The Alliance wasn't just interested in the Zephyrians. They were playing their own game. They were after the artifact for their own reasons, and now it was clear they would do anything to take it. Ryan stepped forward, his voice firm. "Zorv, you don't understand what you're dealing with. This isn't just power, it's destruction. If you take it, there's no turning back." Zorv's eyes flickered with doubt, but he didn't back down. We've waited too long for this. The galaxy will bend to our will. In that moment, Carter knew what he had to do. He couldn't allow the Alliance to take control of such a powerful force. He glanced at his crew and nodded. They were ready. With a quick motion, he reached for his communicator. "Dune, we need backup. Now." The battle was fierce, and the power of the artifact was unlike anything they had ever faced. The Alliance and Tirak were both determined to claim it. But in the end, it was humanity's will that made the difference. Through strategy, unity, and sheer determination, Carter's team fought back, ensuring the galaxy's safety. As the dust settled, Carter stood before the artifact, contemplating the choice that lay before him. With a heavy heart, he made the decision. The artifact was too dangerous to fall into anyone's hands. It had to remain hidden. The Zephyrians, the Alliance, and the Tirak had all sought control of the galaxy, but it was humanity who had emerged as the true protectors. As the U.S. Valor prepared to leave the planet behind, Carter looked toward the stars, knowing that their journey was far from over. But for now, the galaxy was safe, and hope had been restored. They were hidden, buried deep in the unknown corners of the universe, and Carter would stop at nothing to uncover them.